the violinist. Aaron the violinist. The epic Aaron the violinist podcast jingle. Made with a violin, I'm assuming. I don't know if that was made with an assortment of stringed instruments. I don't know if that was made by Aaron the violinist string quartet. If I went back and listened to it again, maybe I'd be able to tell you what different instruments were in it. If there was anything more than violin, was there a cello, a viola? I always wanted to be, ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to play the viola. I always envisioned myself being the best viola player of all time. I wanted to be what Jimi Hendrix was to guitar, to viola. Michael Jones, the best viola player of all time. I wanted to... What if somebody just like took an instrument like that to the level that Jimi Hendrix took the guitar? Fucking made like their version of like the wah pedal for the oboe or some shit and just fucking did a bunch of psychedelics and took the oboe to places it's never been before. Never been before. Yes, Wax's podcast, episode 56. I don't even know what I've said. I can see by my computer equipment, my recording software that I can see right in front of me on my trusty computer. I can tell that I've been talking for over a minute and a half. But I'm not sure what I've said for this minute and a half. I will tell you that I'm sipping a nice Starbucks coffee. Not the biggest fan of Starbucks, but, you know, coffee's coffee. And this week, tonight I wanted to, I say tonight because it is night as I'm recording this relatively. I mean, it's 8 o'clock on a Tuesday. And I've been drinking so much coffee at the house that I decided, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go out and get some coffee. And I went to my local Coffee Bean. If you guys remember, there was an episode where I was talking... This was a year ago or so, and I talked some shit about a dude that worked at Coffee Bean. He had the plugs in his ears, and I talked some shit about the dude. I actually made somebody told him that I was talking shit on Instagram, and me and him, I kind of apologized to him. But you know, I thought if I ever saw him in there again, maybe I'd go ahead and apologize for real. But lo and behold, I go out to where the Coffee Bean once was, and you can tell by the way I just worded that previous sentence that it is no longer there. Not surprisingly to me, because there's this one little shopping center. There's a Coffee Bean, a Jersey Mike's sub shop, and then there's this burrito place. I don't know how the burrito place is still in business. I've seen maybe 3 people in there the entire 2 years I've lived in Venice. Coffee Bean is no longer there. So RIP, rest in peace to that location of Coffee Bean. It's probably not often that a chain that big suffers losses of individual, you know, franchises, but whoever the sole proprietor of that franchise was, I don't know, maybe it was a guy who owns a bunch of Coffee Beans. Maybe it was the guy who owns the whole Coffee Bean. He doesn't even do franchises. Maybe he owns every single one of them. I don't know the fucking business structure behind Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. I'm not paid for that. I'm not an expert in fucking the coffee scene, the coffee business scene. I'm not well versed on the Wall Street segment of coffee enterprise, if that means anything to you. This is not what I'm get paid to do. I don't make my living discussing, you know, coffee business finance, comparing Starbucks to Coffee Bean to Joe the barista. You know, I don't do these things. All I do is get coffee from my local establishments. And it's very rare that I go to Coffee Bean. It's even rarer. Is it more rare? Like if you had a more rare, and there's 2 definitions of rare too. One is like not often. Another one is when you get to order your steak and it's not cooked. Like if you got a steak, I was going to ask a fucking stupid question. I was going to say, if you got a steak and you're like, no, this isn't good, can you make it more rare? Make it rarer? But dude, how the fuck, if it's already cooked, how do you make it more rare? How do you uncook a steak? You just put it in the fucking, the cold fire? Anyway, but if you were to say you would prefer if it was rarer, would you say more rare or rarer? I don't even know. A conundrum today in the English language. Usually I'm pretty good with these things. I consider myself a wordsmith. in many ways, shapes, and forms. I need to read more and talk to people more. Maybe I need to get out there and just have some more conversations so I could have that conversation in real life and talk to somebody that happened to be sitting next to me that was a wizard of the English language, maybe a professor over here at UCLA or some other prestigious university that's in my locale. And I would know. But right now, I don't know if you say rarer or more rare. But I do know that the thing that I segued out of when I was using the term rare was I was saying that it is rare that I visit Coffee Bean, and it is even rarer that I visit Starbucks. At this point in time, I usually make coffee at my house, and when I go out to get coffee, my number one preferred place is Noah's Bagels down the street because they have delicious coffee. Probably tied with that is a place called the Cow's End, because what they lack in deliciousness of coffee that Noah's Bagels has, which is only by a very slight amount that they are not as delicious as Noah's coffee, they well make up for in ambiance. They're down by the Venice Pier, interesting people in there, really friendly people in there. It is cash only in there, and if I don't have cash, I'm not going to fucking go to the ATM just to get a coffee. What kind of first world fucking problems and stupid shit am I talking about right now? There's people out there dying, y'all. There's people out there dying. There's planes out there missing, and I'm over here talking about all my local coffee outings. I will say, this is even stupider and more, less significant. This is less significant even than what I was talking about before, but I was at Starbucks. I go and I get my medium coffee, and then I go over to the Fixins bar, as they used to call it at Roy Rogers. If you know what the fuck I'm talking about, shout out to you. If you know the Fixins bar at Roy Rogers and what those things that would be on that Fixins bar are, shout out to you. But I get my coffee and I head over to the area where you would put sugar or Splenda or Sweet and Low or cream or whatever that you prefer in your coffee. There's only a certain amount of things you can put in your coffee at Starbucks. Those 3 things. Maybe the brown sugar and the raw. Then you could get like skim milk, whole milk, or half and half. This isn't 7-Eleven where you have a plethora of other shit. You could put mini marshmallows, maybe caramel syrup, maybe even chocolate syrup in your coffee. Yeah, so what the fuck was so it's relatively late considering I'm getting coffee, and I go over to the thing. I want to put the sugar in my coffee and I want to put the cream in my coffee. But I look around and lo and behold, the cylindrical metal pitchers that are normally there of Starbucks, on a Starbucks counter, Fixins bar. Excuse me, let me restart that sentence. The cylindrical pitchers that are normally on the Fixins bar at Starbucks are not there tonight. Dun 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 dun. What happens next? Please, Wax. Please tell us what happens next. Please grace us with the fucking tale, which is the rest of this amazing story. You should write this down and put it in, and you're already in Hollywood. Why don't you write it down and give it to some bigwig producer and get them to make a movie out of it? Because what you're about to say is clearly the most interesting thing that's ever been said by anybody and has to be a feature-length film. So, because I don't see these cylindrical pitchers, I make my way back to the counter where I originally ordered my coffee. Luckily for me, it was kind of an off hour at Starbucks. It was around 7 p.m. Not many people in this Starbucks. The only other people that were in the Starbucks either worked there or were sitting there consuming their already purchased beverages. In other words, there was nobody in the line at the main counter at Starbucks. Or at the Fixins bar for that matter. Just me with my medium coffee. And I go up to the guy, I say, am I crazy? I actually said that. I said, am I crazy? Or I do that a lot. I don't know why. Am I crazy? Or is there no creamer over there? What if he would have said, nah, you're fucking crazy. There is no creamer over there, but you are crazy. And he tells me that because of the health, how did he word it? Basically, after 5 p.m., Starbucks does not put creamer out on the Fixins bar due to health code regulations, new health code regulations, where they think that maybe that creamer has been sitting out there too long. Because as you know, milk and cream, most of us know, it has to be refrigerated. And it sits on that fucking Fixins bar. And that's not a refrigerated Fixins bar. It's just out there in the open for anybody to fucking see, mess with, whatever. So after 5 p.m., at least at this Starbucks, and I'm assuming every Starbucks in at least California, or unless it's a county thing or a city thing, I don't know what it is. But in this Starbucks, if it's after 5 p.m. and you want cream in your coffee and you want it from Starbucks, you didn't bring your own cream, or you're not going to take your coffee to go in your own house and get that milk that the milkman gave to you this morning. Assuming you have a milkman, I'm assuming that you do, because most people still do it in this day and age. If you want to get milk in your coffee, you have to go back to the main counter and ask them there. And I said, what, did somebody complain? Did somebody get sick? And he's like, no, I don't really know what it was. But what do you want? And I was like, oh, give me the whole milk. You know, I'm not going to get the skim milk, but I'm not going to get the half and half. I'm not an extreme dude. I'll take it right in the middle. You know what I mean? I got a medium coffee with whole milk. You know, I'm not trying to be so health conscious or skinny that I'd want skim milk. But what kind of tub of lard would I be to get half and half? Jesus. You know? Oh, the fucking... I just had a little technical difficulty, so now I'm coming back. Where was I with my fucking enthralling tale of creamer? I was telling you how I'm just an average man, so I get a medium coffee and I get the whole milk. And I guess the point of the story is that when I asked him what happened? Did somebody get sick? He had told me like, yeah, you can't have the health inspection can't have due to health code regulations, we can't have the creamer out on the table after 5 p.m. And I said, what happened? Why? Did somebody get sick? And then he was like, blah blah blah. I don't know. Here, what kind of cream do you want? I got the fucking whole milk, filled it in my cup, and then when I walked out the door, I actually wished to myself, because this is how fucking dumb I am and how boring my life can be sometimes. I was like, God damn it. When I said, did somebody get sick? I wish I would have said in a sarcastic way, what happened? Did somebody have a cow about it? And I know that that's not funny at all, but I'm just an honest man. I'm trying to be honest. I'm trying to be righteous, and I'm just telling you what I thought. And if that gives you any kind of insight into the kind of sense of humor that I find funny, I think things are funny when they're actually not funny, and they're funny in half of it is the fact that they're not funny. So that was a long story with really no sense of what's the word I'm looking for when you get something out of the end of the story. I don't know what that word is that I'm looking for. Some kind of fucking significance, some kind of meaning, some kind of value, some kind of, I don't know. Let me take a sip of this coffee. With the handheld mic, you don't have to hear me sip the coffee, because I can take the mic away from my hand like so, and then sip the coffee, and then put the mic back to my face like this. I just stood up, and now I can walk around like I'm a fucking stand-up comedian and or a preacher, and pretend that there's an audience here in my apartment, if I'd like to pretend that. Speaking of church, you know what I was thinking about this week that would be funny? Because I watched a recommendation, by the way. I recommend on Netflix, there's a documentary called 20 Feet from Stardom, and it's all about backup singers. And It was a lot of cool shit in it. What like the coolest shit that I took out of it is just like, you know how it's not cool, but like a lot of backup singers, especially back in the, you know, when the Rolling Stones and shit were big, and essentially, you know, in my opinion, and really the opinion of the general public at that time, black music was kind of getting taken, and people from Britain were trying to sound black. And what better way to do so than to take like 3 badass female black singers and make them your backup singer on the track? And, you know, you don't really think about the fact that when you're listening to Joe Cocker or when you're listening to the Rolling Stones, you're hearing these people who probably got paid $50 for the session. And what was my point? Why did I bring this up? Oh, yeah. Well, watch that movie. There's a scene where, like, there's that Rolling Stone song. I can't remember the name of the song, but it's like, I guess it's called Shot Away. It's like, right, murder. It's just a shot away. It's just a shot away. And there's if you remember that song, there's a female vocalist on the track who just starts raging at the end. And it tells the story of that session. And then it solos the fucking, she's like, the Rolling Stones are in a studio session. They wake this chick up in the middle of the night. She goes to the studio, still got her pajamas and shit on. And she's like still practically sleeping, and they're like, yeah, can you go in there and sing Rape Murder? It's just a shot away. And she's like, what the fuck are these dudes having me sing Rape Murder? What the fuck? So she sings the part, and everybody's like, yeah, that was pretty good. And she's just like, you know what? I'm going to fucking kill this shit real quick. And then she fucking does one more take, and then they play the take. In the movie, they play the take just soloed by itself, and it's fucking ridiculous. It gives you goosebumps listening to it. Anyway, everybody should watch that movie. But there's a lot of shit in that movie basically about like the black church. And, you know, and as most of you know, music is a big part of like the black church experience. I say that as if I've ever experienced that experience. I've never even been to a black church. But what it makes me think of course, is, is my church experience I had growing up, which is the Catholic church experience. Granted, there was actually a pretty good amount of black people in my church, but it definitely wasn't anything like what you think of when you think of the black church or when you watch that movie and how it's depicted, and everybody's singing and everybody's having a good time and everybody's harmonizing with each other. To the contrary, in the Catholic Church, most people are, if there's ever a song, most people just fucking lip sync. And the way that the songs are is just on some like really boring shit. So I just thought it'd be funny if there was a fucking white dude who was there was a white dude who was like an R&B singer, and he appeared on the American Idol, and, you know, they show him in the confessional getting interviewed, and he's like, you know what I'm saying? I grew up in the church, you know, that's when I really started singing. I grew up in the church, like, and, you know, normally they'd cut back. If it was a black dude, they'd cut back to like, you know, that the camera crew would have went to his church and like documented it and got everybody wilding out and raging and singing some fucking crazy shit. But if they had that same experience for him and they cut to some old video, yeah, or even they cut to some like old video from when he was a kid, he's like, a picture of the cut, like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was raised in the church, you know, that's when I really started singing. And it cuts to the little him. He's like, it's like, ah, and just fucking some dumb Catholic church shit. Saint Michael, Christopher the Topians, pray for us. I guess nobody would sing that unless it was the preacher. What's like some of the Hallelujah? Man, that was a lot funnier in my head probably, but you know, you gotta understand that it's not like I fucking do these podcasts and like think of a bunch of funny shit and say it, even though sometimes I do, but usually it's I don't even know, whatever. I will say that I did write something down. I wrote 2 things down actually. One thing, I'll preface this one by saying that today, one thing that I did at my apartment here in Venice, my place is getting fucking crazy, man. My place is getting so fucking packed full of dumb shit, especially because I moved out of my studio. So now I got all this additional music equipment. I have a bunch of nonsense in my place. My place is full of shit because, like, you have to understand, I have a lot of, like, wax merchandise in all, like, the storage place, T-shirts, boxes. I've done so much fucking dumb merch with my name on it. Lighters, boxes, pint glasses, T-shirts of various types, CDs, everywhere. So a lot of that shit. Then there's a lot of like I'm just going to look. I'm looking around my house right now. It's like box full of whatever the fuck that is. Box full of who knows what's in there. Box full of who knows what's in there. Whole stand with like a printer and a an old school VHS camera with a DVD player and a DVD burner because I needed to do that for a project that I was working on. Another thing for a project I was working on, a box full of who knows the fuck what, big ass amp, a bunch of guitars, a bunch of that shit you put on the wall. Like, you know that shit you put on the wall, like egg crate shit that you put on the wall, styrofoamy shit? Just in a pile, a bicycle, a bunch of fucking clothes. I have way too many clothes. That's another thing that happens when you do this showbiz shit. You know, even though I'm actually really bad at it and I have done this, you're not supposed to wear like the same t-shirts in videos and at shows and shit like that, even though I do that all the time. Like, if I was good about that, I'd have twice as many clothes. But I have so many fucking dumb t-shirts and shit like that. I'm actually gonna I fucking segue on the weirdest shit, but my point was that I was cleaning my place today. I'm cleaning and organizing. Today's task was the music area shit. I threw away a bunch of shit. I wrapped up a bunch of cords. I tested all my equipment that I didn't know if it works. Separated the stuff that does from the stuff that doesn't. I have a box now in front of me of stuff that I am going to sell at my yard sale that I decided today I was going to have. I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to have a yard sale. B, I'm going to take like stuff. I don't know if you saw my Facebook recently. I have this jacket that I wore in a video called Wax Goes Bananas. It's a cool jacket, like a track jacket with a random German soccer team name on the back. And a lot of people want that jacket. So stuff that and a couple other things I'm going to raffle. I'm going to raffle off on a website, and whatever money I make from it, I don't expect to make a lot, but whatever I do make from it, I'm going to give to charity. I'm going to find a charity, probably something with like kids that don't have parents, or either that or something with like music programs for kids, something. I'll figure it out. My point is, I'm getting rid of a lot of shit. Some of it I'm going to donate to Goodwill. Some of it I'm going to sell at my yard sale. Some of it I'm going to throw the fuck away. Some of it I'm going to raffle off, like I just said. And I got to that because why did I get to, why was I talking? Oh, Jesus. I got to that because one of the things that I wrote down that I was going to do is read something out of this notebook I found. I found in a bunch of the boxes that I have of random shit that I hadn't looked through in a while, that I looked through today. I found a notebook that looks like it's Dumbfounded's it's Dumbfounded's rap book from a while ago. And I decided that I'm going to open it to a random page and read whatever it says. All right. God, his handwriting is terrible. Don't sweat the little stuff. Stick your middle fingers up. Throw off that useless baggage out like a litter bug. The long road ahead of you, smoke a bong loud and exhale the residue. Oh, I hear the rhymes. Never blue, 'cause somebody always got it worse. Keep it moving and get your mama that Prada purse. What doesn't kill you, God, it just makes you a stronger person. It's adversities that help me write the better verses. There you have it. I don't know what the fuck that was. I don't think I've ever actually heard that rap before, so I might have just told you some never used Dumbfounded material. So, you know, on Wax's podcast, you get all the exclusives. And I know that motherfucker will never use that because that notebook's been in a box for a long time. I think that he was using that notebook when we did the song Guess Who, if any of you know that song, and that song was pretty fucking old at this point. So maybe that's something I'll do every week. I'll read a random page from Dumbfounded's notebook of raps that I found while cleaning my apartment. So that was one thing I wrote down. The other thing that I had written down was about Ikea. This past weekend I spent in San Diego, as I like to do. You know, my brother's down there with his lovely wife Jessica and their two kids, Max and Manny. And there's nothing that I love more than spending time with this family. You know, I don't have a wife or kids, and you know, having these two nephews in relatively close proximity. I wish I could hang out with my other nephew who's on the East Coast too, but having these two kids in close proximity is awesome for me. It's also a form of birth control, because when I'm with them and they just flip out for no fucking reason, it makes me think, oh, I'm gonna wear a condom next time. So I'm down there, and it's really strange, man. I'm not, I'm getting older, and doing things like with my brother and his family. Sometimes, I like to hang out and like get fucked up and write music and do the stuff we've been doing for years. But sometimes the coolest shit to do with him is like just regular family dad shit. Like when they got to go to get something like, yeah, I got to go to Home Depot and get a fucking shelf or whatever. So this weekend they went to Ikea. They were actually treating themselves this weekend. They were buying themselves a table because their table that they have is pretty small and they wanted to have a bigger table. So they went to Ikea and they bought themselves as an Ikea table. And what did I write down here about Ikea? I don't know how to explain the feeling that I had when I was in Ikea. You have to put yourself there. I don't know how many of you guys have been to Ikea, but I'm sure a good amount of you have. You walk in there, it's fucking enormous, first of all. And it doesn't really have a lot of competitors. As far as furniture goes, there's Goodwill and shit like that or just finding a couch on the side of the street. And then there's like high-end furniture, on like fucking Rodeo Drive and shit, wherever people buy high-end furniture. And then there's, you might be able to find some stuff at you might be able to find certain things at like Target. Target's up there with Target and Walmart and stuff like that. But when it comes to general furniture, Ikea really doesn't have much competition. And that's because it's so fucking big. It's just like Home Depot. It's just like Target or whatever, except it's the furniture version of Home Depot. And when you walk in, and you have to walk through the entire store to get to the end. There's literally arrows on the ground from start to finish. And when you walk in, you have to walk through the whole fucking thing. It's kind of cool, really, how they have it set up. It looks like you're walking through a bunch of different little fucking rooms. Here's a kitchen. Whoa, this kitchen's great. Look at this bedroom for Sam, But what got me is just like, the fucking enormity of it, and just like the way that people are all flowing through it as if it's like a fucking walking marathon. Like you're just walking like a marathon, a slow marathon of zombies, just walking slow and looking really like, picture me walking around really slow and looking left to right and just like looking like you've been tranquilized, but just like, should I get a table? Oh, look, there's hangers. Oh, look, those are different colored light bulbs. Do we need that? Do we need this? Do we need that? And just walking and walking. And if you look around at all the people, I was just picturing in my head, I was picturing the security camera footage, and I was picturing the person watching that security camera footage being like, fucking, this is a Swedish company, so like Bjorn Ikea, or whoever the fuck owns Ikea, just watching, petting his kitten, while he's watching this fucking security camera footage of Ikea with all these zombies just going through and just buying and buying and buying. And he just him knowing that every purchase he's getting a cut of, and his bank account is getting fuller and fuller and fuller. And he's just petting his cat and watching. And this is what he does. This is what he does for his day, for his pleasure, for his enjoyment. The same way that some people would ride a bike or drink a beer or play with their family or anything that you would get enjoyment out of. This is his work day and his leisure day wrapped up into one. Him just watching this footage and watching around the world. He has a button where he flips. We're in the San Diego location over there in fucking La Mesa or wherever it was. Where the fuck was that at? I can't remember where it was. No, it's not La Mesa. I don't know. Whatever. He clicks from that. Then he goes to L.A. Then he goes to Hong Kong. If there is one in Hong Kong, I don't know. But then he's clicking and clicking and clicking. And some places are busier than others. And some places aren't quite as busy. But they're all busy. They all have people walking around. The zombies are walking everywhere. And he's happy. And he's petting his cat. And he's just happy and happy and happy. And it just made me think, like, we all fucking want a table. My brother wants a table. And his wife, yes, wants a table. All of us want a table. I bought a table before. There's a table sitting right in front of me. Most of us want a table. I actually didn't buy this table from Ikea. It's a fold-up table, like a DJ table or or a fucking it's like a table that you would have at like a catering company would have, just like a folding table, So I didn't buy it at Ikea. I actually bought this table at like Target or some shit like that. But same thing. Just picture Donald Target doing the same thing with but he's American, so instead of a cat and being in Sweden, he's got a fucking he has a German Shepherd, but he's American. Whatever. He's got a fucking Chesapeake Bay Retriever, and he's sitting in his house in Herndon, Virginia, and doing the same fucking thing. I don't know. It doesn't matter. My point is that we all want fucking tables. 99% of us, we just want a fucking table where our family can fucking eat. We want to purchase a table for the purpose of putting food on it. So, if you look at it from my brother's perspective, his wife, and his sons can sit there and enjoy their breakfast together. But 1% of us don't look at that as enough. 1% of us sees that 99% of us want a table. And he says, how can I fucking get something out of that? How can I the fact that 99% of these people want a table, how can I make that profitable for me? I want to be a part of this. This beauty, this love of people sitting at a table and eating together. I want to make that make me fucking richer. And I don't even need the fucking money. It's not about the money, because I'm not going to use the money. The only thing it's just my numbers are going to get higher and higher, and I'm just going to sit in my fucking seat and watch people shop at my Ikea. That's my enjoyment. I'm not even using the money to buy shit. The only thing I'm buying with the money is fancier cat food. I'm not buying a fucking yacht. I'm not buying shit. If I do buy a yacht, it's just going to sit in the marina like all these. When I ride my bike by the Marina del Rey Marina, there's a fucking yacht in every yacht spot, every spot that's designated for a yacht to be parked in, there's a yacht there. And if you look at that shit on a daily basis, even here in sunny Southern California, if you were to look on an average day, 100 spots where yachts are, maybe one or two of them would be out. Most people that own a yacht do not use their yacht a lot. Their yacht is usually on the spot. They do not use their yacht a lot. I repeat, they do not use their yacht a lot. Instead, it's in the spot. I was gonna go on and keep rhyming, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just trying to say that there's a small percentage of people in the world that just look at everybody else and say, how can I fucking be in power? What can I do with all their regular ass needs? Hold on. All their regular, somewhat beautiful wants and desires. How can I use that to make me succeed? I mean, you could argue the same thing for politicians, I don't really have a stake in politics anymore. I don't really give a fuck, but I will say that take Barack Obama, for example. His whole thing was hope, Us having, everybody having that little bit of hope is really, they don't hope to be the president. They don't hope to be the fucking most powerful person in the world. Most of us just hope that shit's going to get a little better. Maybe they hope to get a raise. Maybe they hope to have a little bit more money in their bank account. Maybe they're hoping that their student loan interest can be a little bit shorter. Maybe they're hoping that they can get health care for their grandma. Just like any little issue you're hoping for, So when you see somebody that represents hope, that's something that you can market. Just the same shit as somebody needing a table. It's just this little thing that everybody has. And then one person, I don't know. I don't really know exactly what I'm trying to say. I'm not a fucking politician. I'm just a dude that makes a podcast, I'm just a fucking guy that makes a podcast. I'm not trying to change the world. But, yeah, that's what I have to say this week. And I think that's about all that I have to say. Sorry about the podcast not being here last week. I promised that I actually did sit down last week and try to do a podcast. It just wasn't flowing, Sometimes it just doesn't work. And I didn't put out a podcast last week. So that's what happened. It's It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I can't remember whose catchphrase is. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Can't remember who the fuck that is. But yeah, I'm just here at my crib, and I think it's about time that we answer some questions and do some shout-outs. All right, let's see what we got here. I don't know how many questions and shout-outs I got this week. This is, let's see. All right, shout-outs. Lance in Australia. Wait, is this the fucking... Did I do that? No, I didn't do a podcast last week. I'm sorry. Lance in Australia and his family. Nathan C., TJL, Lucas, John H., Daniel from AZ, being Arizona, Aaron L., Julian S., Spencer Scooby, who recommends the rapper A1. I don't know that I'm familiar with A1, but I will take your word for it, Spencer Scooby. Will O. in Montana, Diamond Beats, EJP, Patash from Germany, and Matt from the Philly suburbs. Mike W. from Canada recommends, this is what he said, I want everyone to go watch Dave Chappelle's Block Party, which is on Netflix right now. I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it. It's so dope. I'd explain it, but I'm sure Wax has seen it. I guess, I don't know why you're referring to me in the third person right there. I guess you figured I had some fucking intern that answers the emails or some kind of fucking assistant. If I had an assistant who did all the email stuff for me, I'd probably be better at getting the podcast done every week, because that's part of what takes a while. I'm a little bit behind on that, but that's nothing new. I'm always fucking behind on the emails. Also, I recommend, this is Mike W. from Canada again. Also, I recommend, and by the way, not to interrupt myself again, I'm interrupting the interruption of myself. Dave Chappelle's Block Party is something that I have seen, so you were right about that, Mike W. from Canada, and it is great. I stick by Mike W. from Canada's recommendation on that. And his words continue. Also, I recommend Deltron 3030, Doom by Mood, an underground hip-hop band like The Roots that never really made it, did that album with Talib Kweli, super dope. I'm actually not familiar with that. I don't know what that is. I got to check that out. And Breaking Atoms by The Main Source, dope Canadian hip-hop act, and this album is worth noting because it has Live at the Barbecue, which I don't want to say made Nas famous, but it definitely played a huge part in his generating a name on the underground. Yes, I'm very familiar with Live at the Barbecue, where Nas says that he went to hell for snuffing Jesus. And yeah, I remember Main Source as well. I didn't know until I was older that they were Canadian, actually. I just assumed they were from New York. But no, they're from Canada. Toronto, if I believe. That's all I got for you this week. Glad you're back at the podcast. Well, thanks, Mike W. from Canada. This next thing, this is from Mad Prophet. And this says, thanks for the podcast shout out again. I've got a story that you might find humorous. This happened last summer when I was interning at this office for a major dog food company. I don't remember exactly why I decided to read this, but let's just read what he wrote. I think this is kind of written sort of poetically. Just got there, 8 a.m. All right, this is when he worked for a major dog food company, interning at an office of a major dog food company. Just got there, 8 a.m., tired as hell. Drink coffee for the first time that morning. Stupidly drank 3 tall cups. Oh, this is like, I didn't include like the first part of this where he had said that he hadn't really drank coffee before. Stupidly drank 3 tall cups to make sure it works. 10 minutes later, my stomach feels like someone filled it with dirt and is trying to make a balloon animal with it. By far the most intense, horrible feeling of bubble guts I've ever had. Ate about a metric ton of Kung Pao and orange chicken the night before. Can feel the shit vehemently trying to escape my rectum as if it was possessed by a demon trying to escape its 1,000-year imprisonment. Have to walk all the way down the hall with my ass and thighs clenched tightly. By the time I reach the bathroom, I'm sweating profusely and grunting with every step. Go to the nearest stall. There's someone in the stall next to it, but I don't give a fuck at that point. Didn't give a fuck at that point. Yank pants and underwear down, then attempt to slam my ass down on the toilet seat. Ass slips off the seat due to the slickness created by ass sweat. Fall off. One of my arms goes into the toilet. My ass slips under the stall divider. Here it comes, cannot control it. Shit literally explodes out of my ass, covering the entire stall. Its occupant starts screaming. I start screaming too because of the nuclear explosion that my anus was emitting. It was total anal annihilation. The poop dies down after about half a minute, my ass still sputtering and oozing a bit. Person rushes out of the stall, almost slips in the shit, then dashes out the bathroom door. There was no way he left that stall not drenched in dookie. Lay on the ground for about 2 minutes just trying to recover. Finally managed to get up. Notice I, miraculously, have no poop on me at all, parentheses, except my ass. Clean up my ass in about 5 minutes. Open the other stall to inspect the damage. It was as if someone had dumped a 50-gallon drum of diarrhea into the stall. I don't know what made that me laugh more about that previous sentence is picturing the diarrhea on the floor or picturing a 50-gallon drum of diarrhea and somebody actually fucking pouring that out. I could even make out the outline of the previous occupant against the wall. That's fucking hilarious. Almost vomit and worry that someone might walk in at any moment. Wash my hands and leave as fast as I could. No one ever found out it was me. The only casualties were the guy I shit on, who had just happened into our building to shit real quick, and our janitor Dave. Felt bad about leaving that for him, but it was his job after all. Those poor, poor men. And that was the most eventful thing that happened the summer of 2013. Feel free to read it on the podcast if you want to. Stay safe out there. Mad Prophet. Well, thank you very much, Mad Prophet. I decided to read that because not only did I like the story and thought it was funny, but it reminded me of some shit that I would have said back in the day. Me and my friends used to say things like anal annihilation and anus was emitting and shit like that. But I like the way that you wrote it. Like everything was like lay on the ground, manage to get up, wash my hands, like everything. Kind of poetic there, Mad Prophet. Maybe that's why they call you Mad Prophet. You know. You should go. You should take that shit to like this most serious spoken word event and say that shit not as if you're trying to be funny. Just say it seriously and say it as how you really feel about life or something like that. Anyway, good shit, Mad Prophet. All right, this is from Andrew from Boston. Hey man, what's your favorite restaurant you've been to? Like if you had to choose right now, what would you eat? Thanks for your music. Oh, man. You know what? What's the name of that place? It's a place in Weed, California. There's a town. I told Andrew from Boston that I would just, when I read this, I was like, when he emailed me that question, I was like, dude, that would change depending on when you asked me. So when I read it on the podcast, I'm just going to say whatever I think of first. And that's what I thought of just now. Let me, matter of fact, Weed, California Diner. This place is on my Instagram. I know I took a picture of the menu somewhere. The High-Low Cafe. The High-Low Cafe. H-I-L-O. That place, we went there twice on the Wintervention tour. Once on the way up to Seattle and once on the way back. If you ever taken I believe it's right off the 5. If you ever taken the 5 just up the West Coast, you could see Weed, California. It's like a little tiny town. You know, people think that, you know, you can buy a fucking shirt that says like fucking Weed 420, like a tie-dye shirt. Everybody in the town probably just makes money off the fact that the town's called Weed. And it's a cool little town, but we stopped there and we went to this place, the High-Low Cafe, and it's just a fucking amazing classic American diner kind of place, which is officially now I would say that my favorite. People used to always ask me what my favorite food was, and I'd say, I don't know, man. I like everything, and it truly does depend on when you ask me what my favorite food is. But if you were to realistically look at my life and see what I've seen, la 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 la, if you look at my life and eat what I've eaten, you would see life is all just what you make it. I like American food. I like to eat bacon, pancakes, and breakfast omelets. Whatever. That was a Mary J. Blige song, if you didn't know, but I was changing it to make it... I changed it to make it food related to what I was talking about currently. Man, I should be on Saturday Night Live with that kind of hilarity and kind of insight mixed with parody and music, you know? I'm the regular Adam Sandler in this bitch. But point being that realistically, if you actually looked at my activities, my daily habits, things that I do when I'm alone, as I've said before on this podcast, a man's most honest moment is when he's masturbating. That's because he's totally alone, and the only person that really casts judgment on him is himself. And as a person who spends a lot of time alone, as you can probably tell if you listen to this podcast, I often eat by myself. And when I go out to eat by myself, I don't generally go out to eat sushi. I don't generally go out and eat Italian food. I don't generally go out and eat Mexican food. That's not true. I do that a lot. But generally, if I'm to go out to eat by myself, I would say 80% of the time I go to some kind of diner and partake in what one would call American food. I think when you hear American food, the first thing you would think of is hamburgers and hot dogs. I think that's the first thing that people think of when they think of American food. People from other countries, I'm sure, think of McDonald's and shit like that. So they'd probably just think of fat fucks eating burgers and French fries, which is completely accurate. Especially if you consider, if you're listening right now and you're from another country and you think that the stereotype for Americans is that we have really, really large hamburgers, servings of French fries, and especially large sodas, you're exactly right, especially with the size of soda. If you go to a Taco Bell and order a medium soda, you might be surprised when they hand you a 5-gallon drum of fucking high fructose corn syrup. But my point is, what I consider as an American, what I consider to be American food is what you would get at a place like the High-Low Cafe. They might have a couple other offerings depending on where you are. You know, if you're in the Southwest, or California, even an American diner is probably going to have a lot of Mexican influence options. You know, you might see some chilaquiles. You might be able to get, what's that shit called? That, of course, is escaping me right now. The classic Mexican fucking egg dish. I can't believe I can't think of it right now. Whatever. You might be able to get machaca and eggs. You might be able to get some carne asada and eggs. Huevos rancheros. That's what I was thinking of that I forgot. Anyway... But, you know, in certain other places, you might get different variations that come with these places. But generally, if you really want to get an idea of what I'm talking about, the shitty version of what I'm talking about is Denny's. That's the shitty version of what I'm talking about. But the good version of what I'm talking about is a place like the High-Low Cafe where you can get an amazing omelet with crazy-ass side of potatoes. They might have a special on, like, pumpkin pancakes. Maybe blueberry French toast, you know, things like that. It might have a nice Belgian waffle, and I know that's originates in Belgium because, motherfucker, I've been in downtown Antwerp eating a Belgian waffle. Bam! If you don't believe me, if you don't believe that, look on my Instagram. Also, whatever. I'm not gonna go where I was about to go with the Belgium story, but I ate an awesome Belgian waffle in Belgium. But if you're not into eating breakfast all the time, offerings that you could get from this restaurant would be something like meatloaf, maybe some pot roast, maybe some beef brisket, absolutely, definitely some fried chicken. These things that I'm mentioning might come up with a side of mashed potatoes, potato salad, macaroni salad, maybe some kind of dumb vegetable of the day like just broccoli or something like that. You might be able to get corn on the cob. If it's a little bit more southern themed, you might be able to get, you know, some macaroni and cheese, maybe some barbecued baked beans. if you're in North Carolina and you're eating at a barbecue place, you might be able to get some sweet tea with that, some Brunswick stew. I consider those American meals too. Most types of Southern barbecue is kind of in the same, goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about, but it's kind of like its own extension of it, just like I was talking about with the Mexican breakfast items being here in California. But if you went to a place, if you went to like a family restaurant in fucking Billings, Montana or some shit like that, that's the kind of like, just even saying that right now makes me want to go to Billings, Montana, which I've never even been to, and find their best restaurant, which I'm sure in most American towns right now, if you went to everybody that lives there and said, what's the best restaurant in town, they'd probably name some bullshit like chain like Applebee's or Olive Garden or something. So hopefully we have enough small town restaurants still left that when I go on my tour of America coming up, I'll be able to go to some. That being said, the tour I'm referring to is the Warped Tour, by the way. Check me out this summer if you live in the continental United States. I'm going all around. It looks pretty bad right now, by the way, as far as me getting into Canada. That's not looking too, it's not looking too promising right now. So for the Toronto and Montreal shows, there's a very good chance that I will not be performing. But it doesn't matter what I said about the restaurants, because if you're on the Warped Tour, you pretty much eat at the Warped Tour. It's cool because they have catering free. They have, like, you can get free meals pretty much 24/7 and shit like that. But like when you're at the venue all day when you're at the Warped Tour. Like, you have to get there at 9 a.m. and then you might perform at 8 p.m. and then you just get in your vehicle and head to the next show. So there's not really like, oh, I'm gonna go eat at some fucking spot in town. Although I'm sure you can figure it out sometimes. That was your amazing insight into tour life. I like American food. Yes. Where the fuck was I at? I'm still reading questions. Okay. Hold up, yo. What is this? What is this right here? Damn, I really didn't have a lot of questions this week. Did I fuck this up? Am I missing questions? Let me make sure I didn't fuck this up. I probably did. No, I think this is the most recent one I had. Pretty sure. So yeah, it looks like I just have one more question. Let's see what this is. This is Tom, a.k.a. Waddy, 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 from England. Hey, Wax. Been a fan of the Been a fan of the podcast for a long time now. Always something to look forward to every week. Well, mostly weekly. Haha. I'll take that, man. I should be doing this shit every week. What the fuck kind of life? What kind of example am I setting for the people out there? I'll tell you what kind of example I'm setting. I'm setting an example for people that if they followed my example, followed my lead, they would become slackers like me. That being said, I'm doing all right. So, hey, what can I say? Just wondering if you've ever come across a rapper called Spose from Maine. I think it would be awesome if you were to ever do a collaboration. Actually, I think me and him might be about to do a collaboration, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, my question for you is, now you have had success in Europe, are you likely to tour Europe with the release of your new album? And if so, would you be likely to do a few dates in England? P.S. Can't wait for some more material from you. Any responses appreciated. Tom/Waddy from England. That's a tough question. As far as my next album, I'm working very slowly on it. I don't like to rush shit, but as far as me coming to Europe, we'll have to see. Even without, I've had two different types of success in Europe. I've had the success of a single, which allowed me to do some crazy fucking shows, like big festivals and shit in Germany and Austria and some other places in Central Europe. And then I've had just general success with people such as yourself that listen to the podcast that happen to reside on the European continent, and people that watch my shit on YouTube, people that buy my albums and all that stuff, which allowed me to join Watsky on the tour that we did and have people come out and see me and say what's up and all stuff like that. So I would say that I really, really hope that I will make it to Europe again as soon as possible. I don't know when that will happen. I'll be touring the United States this summer, and I really need to fucking goddamn get some more music out there before I can really extensively tour again. We'll see what happens, man. I will keep you updated. Hopefully, as time goes on, I'll have more and more shit, and maybe I can drop some new shit and come over there and tour. I will say that there might be a herbal tea tour in England, so I will have more information for you. I shouldn't even mention it because now if it doesn't happen, it's a fucking letdown. Or I mean, we'll see what happens. Hopefully the lack of Afro and herbal tea England tour will work out, and hopefully if it works out, I'll fucking come over there and fucking not even perform. I'll just go along for the ride and just have fun. We'll see what happens, man. As for right now, I don't know what's gonna happen because I can't predict the future. Even though in certain cases, such as this case, when I could make an educated guess on the future, it's not like I'm predicting, where there's gonna be an earthquake or how the world's gonna end. I'm just fucking making an educated guess on whether or not my brother will tour Europe based on some information I already have. I don't have all the information, so that's what makes it a guess. But that's also what makes it an educated guess, uninformed guess. Guess. I don't know why I wanted to say guest, but yeah. Let me see if I didn't really have anything else. I did think about something this week. Just let me finish with something that's at least somewhat inspirational. At least it was to me. I don't know if it will be to you, but I think it will be. I moved to LA about 6.5 years ago, and in my first year of being here, I met a lot of people. I was doing a lot of open mic nights when I was here, and it really sucks. Like when I first moved to LA, I had much more of a bustling social life. I got out more, and I actually hung out with more people than I do now. So it's actually a little bit depressing that a lot of the people that I'm thinking about, right now, when I think about the fact that I used to hang out with all these people, I don't hang out with them a lot anymore, which is kind of shitty. Maybe I need to change my ways. But the first year that I lived here, I hung out with a lot of stand-up comics because, as I've said before on the podcast, when you do open mics in Los Angeles, as opposed to most other cities, it's mostly comedy. In other cities, like I used to do open mic nights in Baltimore, for example, and it was expected that most people that go to the open mic nights do music. 50 to 70% of the people there are there with their acoustic guitar and they're like singer-songwriters. That's like the main thing that exists at an open mic night. Not only in Baltimore, I would say most cities. But when you get to Los Angeles and you start Googling open mic nights, as I did when I first moved here, trying to make it in the record biz or whatever the fuck I tried to do, and I guess succeeded. Fuck, what am I talking about? I did succeed, and then I am successful. But once it's a fucked up world, man. You never can have enough, I guess, in your own brain. Especially in other people's brains too. But I consider myself doing well. My goal was to make a living doing this shit, and I'm doing it. My point is this. A friend of mine, Cornell, which was one of the comedian dudes that I used to hang out with a lot, a pretty good amount when I first moved to LA, I kind of like knew a bunch of people through my friend Adam that did comedy, and Cornell was one of them. And this was definitely like in my first year here. It was when I lived in an apartment over in East Hollywood in Little Armenia, and me and him, he was an avid hip hop fan. I'm assuming he still is, but he was a big hip hop fan. Liked a lot of the weirder shit. One of those things being Kool Keith. He was a big fan of Kool Keith, and Kool Keith played at the El Rey Theater. The El Rey Theater is an awesome, really nice venue in Los Angeles. It's like one of those venues that's all like red velvety, big chandeliers, what I'm saying? You can do really classy events there. There's a classy looking joint, you know what I mean? And me and him, we went to see the Kool Keith concert. And it was interesting. Like it was kind of weird. Kool Keith seemed really like drunk. So when he first got on the stage, the first song he did, he was murdering it. But as the set went on, he just kind of started freestyling to most of the songs that he performed. He was clearly just freestyling, and he was kind of fucked up, and the show was weird. And it was one of my first experiences with a really, really, truly Hollywood, LA type of crowd. Like, if you think about the kind of artist Kool Keith is, you know, he has his fans, and people. There were people there that like knew all the words and were in the front row cheering him on and singing. Of course, they were the ones that were probably the most perplexed by the fact that he wasn't singing his own lyrics. He was just freestyling most of the time. But it's an 800 capacity room. Looks bigger than that, but it's an 800 capacity room. And it was probably, I'd say, half full. And most of the people were kind of like in the back, and it was a Hollywood crowd. Like, most people there were there to be there and there to be seen there. And, you know, like when Kool Keith first came out, like I said, he was fucking murdering shit, and he had so much energy, and everybody was in the front was hype. But, you know, when he said to put your hands up, you know, most of this Hollywood crowd did not put their hands up, and they did not know the words, and they were there because of the fact that Kool Keith is kind of a hip, even more so at that time, I'd say, but like a kind of a hip and interesting artist. So that was my first real experience with a really, really Hollywood type of crowd. But my point is that if you would have told me, I was just thinking about this recently. Maybe I don't know. If you would have told me that, like, you know, when I saw that show, that one day, you know, keep in mind at this time I was doing open mic nights in LA, and I'd be doing like 2-song sets in front of just a bunch of stand-up comedians and shit. And if you would have told me that I'd play at that show, I'd play at that venue and sell the place out as me as a headliner, I would have told you were fucking crazy. I would have told you that would never happen, and you must be fucking dreaming thinking that shit. But it did happen this past December. That's what happened. So you know, shit. You know, things are possible. Things are possible. That's the lesson for this week, kids. Things are possible. And with that said, go do whatever it is that you do. But in doing so, be safe out there.